Hi, friends. Today, I found out about this wacky Xeno concept called the Path. So, I've dedicated myself to the path of talking about Eldar. So, let's just start this journey off by talking about the coolest units in the Eldar, the Aspect Warriors. While nearly every Eldar is at the very least trained to be a Guardian and are competent warriors, the Guardians are a militia force and only really fight when the craft world is threatened. Aspect Warriors, on the other hand, are the Eldar who've actually dedicated themselves to the path of the warrior and are considered the real warriors of the Eldar. But what exactly is a path, you may ask? Well, the Eldar, much like a hormone ridden teenager or me after seeing the model I painted for 13 hours getting one shot on turn 1, are prone to extreme emotions. So extreme, in fact, that a literal god of excess manifested and destroyed the elf world. So, to prevent such a silly, goofy thing from happening again, the Craft World Eldar created the philosophy of the Path, or, in nerd terms, Ielthra. Essentially, every Eldar chooses a specific path to dedicate themselves to for a while, and then break off once they have mastered it enough and grown as a person. Filthy Xeno, of course. In theory, the path system is meant to teach discipline, while also giving them something to focus on to distract them from being a dirty degenerate all the time. Nothing can really distract them from being a Xeno, so it doesn't really matter in the end, but I digress. And these paths can be pretty much anything from magic, arts, even dreaming. Like this dude for real dedicated himself to being very eepy and lucid dreaming. And one of the most prominent paths in Warhammer is, of course, the path of the warrior, which is where the aspect warriors come into play. Each aspect warrior has dedicated themselves to mastering a different aspect of war, and these aspects are martial arts created by different Phoenix Lords, which are basically Eldar Primarchs. Each aspect is super specialized and meant to embody an aspect of the Eldar war god Cain. Aspect warriors are extremely good at what they do, and what they do is killing things. These elite warriors spend years and years honing their craft and learning all about the Phoenix Lord's teaching in their aspect shrines. As such, they are some of the best warriors in the galaxy, if not the best. These guys are on par with Space Marines, if not stronger. Or at least they should be on par. Mhm. These two are about equal warriors, but generally the Marines are versatile jack of all trade warriors where the aspect warriors spec hard into one thing and are just better than anyone else at it. Another cool thing about these dudes is that since Eldar are prone to extreme emotion, it's obviously dangerous for them to experience the extreme emotions of battle since they may fall into uncontrollable bloodlust, experience crippling guilt after killing others, or even just feel so bad for their enemies that they can't fight. So, to alleviate these issues, the Aspect Warriors master a state of mind in which they are able to separate the warrior mindset and their personal selves. This is called the War Mask. It's basically how you make different personalities for your various friend groups. So, just like how you can't use your super cool, dark, edgy humor with some of your pals, the Aspect Warriors aren't in their warrior state with the normal civilian Eldars, otherwise, they'd look like total weirdos. However, some Eldar do end up permanently in their war mask, and these are called the Exarchs, and they lead the Aspect Warrior squads. These dudes lost themselves on the path of the warrior and wholly dedicated themselves to mastering warfare. Now, this might sound like a good thing, but it's actually quite bad for the Eldar. You see, the path philosophy has one mastering their path and then eventually giving it up to take on another path. To lose oneself on the path is seen as shameful and bad by Eldar society since the Eldar became too obsessed with their path and can no longer swap paths. So, Exarchs are Eldar who literally only think about war, war techniques, and war accessories. These Exarchs spend literally all of their time training in their aspect, maintaining their aspect shrines, and putting their terrain to good use. And by that, I of course mean killing anything that stands in their way. So with that, let's start to make our way towards the actual aspects and what they're all about. But before that, allow me a moment to talk about today's sponsor, the Battle Barge Wargaming Cruise. Yes, you heard me right, Wargaming Cruise. When these dudes reached out to me and told me what they're all about, I was pretty hyped since it sounds wicked cool. Essentially, it's a Warhammer convention on a cruise ship. Ever just wish you could abandon your worries and just paint little figurines and battle other people's little figurines for 6 days straight? Well, you literally can. Not to mention, you'd be on a freaking Caribbean cruise. The Battle Barge will be hosting a cruise-long 1,000 point narrative campaign, kill team matches that influence the main campaign, and painting workshops taught by award-winning painters. In addition, they'll have friendly pickup matches, a bunch of other board games and war games to try out, and a hobby area with complimentary painting supplies so you can work on your pile of shame or prepare your boys for battle. Oh yeah, and obviously you're on a cruise, so there's a lot of cool stuff from that, like shows, water slides, and socially acceptable day drinking. So if you get tired of Warhammer, you can just enjoy the Royal Caribbean cruise you're on. Everyone knows that being on a boat makes everything better, so if you like Warhammer, consider dedicating yourself to the path of vacationing and look into the Battle Barge cruise. And if you do, consider using my affiliate link and code CRACKDUCK. That's KRAKDUK, all caps to get a discount on this awesome experience. But yes, to the aspect warriors. Let's start off with the dire avengers since they were the first aspect to be made and are the most standard warriors. This aspect was made by the total mad lad Chad Azerman and represents Kane as a noble warrior, but also his unending thirst for vengeance, hence the Avenger part of their name. Dire Avengers are technically specialized in defense and decisive counterattacks, but in reality, they're most useful for their tactical flexibility. That flexibility, along with the fact that they're the most numerous aspect warriors, makes them the heart of any Eldar army. So, I suppose they're specialized in not being specialized. But even though they're not as specialized as their peers, they're still a force to be reckoned with and are perhaps the most important aspect. On the battlefield, they unleash hails of razor discs from their Avenger Shuriken catapults while they swiftly dodge returning fire. They're also very tactically minded and often responsible for directing their foes in battle by leveraging their volleys of fire to try and push enemy forces into position for the other aspect warriors to do their thing. That thing often being killing. The Dire Avengers are proficient in both ranged and melee combat, and this is exemplified by their Exarchs. Dire Avenger Exarchs are very versatile by Eldar standards, as they have a whole lot of ranged and melee weapons, from swords and spears to the standard Avenger Shuriken catapult. Or, if you really want to be a badass, two Avenger Shuriken catapults. Hell yeah! Next up, let's talk about my favorite aspect warriors, the Striking Scorpions. Other than being the coolest looking Eldar, the Striking Scorpions specialize in close combat, specifically deadly stealth strikes. They embody the Wrath of Cain, which can unexpectedly strike at any moment. Their founder and original Phoenix Lord was Ahura. Ahura was an incredibly bloodthirsty dude, and he created the Scorpion's brutal and deadly fighting style. However, Ahura betrayed the other Phoenix Lords and eventually dueled one of his own students, Karandras. Now, Karandras was not as skilled as his master, but he was a master of stealth. Leveraging this, he was able to defeat Ahura and become the new Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions, where he implemented his stealth tactics into the Scorpions' combat doctrines. This combination of patient stealth and devastating strikes created an extremely deadly force as the Scorpions silently stalked their prey and emerged from the shadows to utterly destroy the unknowing opponents in brutal melee. Which, also, living in the desert, let me tell you something about scorpions. These little bastards really are sneaky and spooky. This is a true life, actual real story. One time, I was getting dressed for the day, I take my pajamas off, I put my shirt on, I go to put my pants on, and there it was. A damn scorpion was in my pants. Like, actually in my pants. To which I took one from the Howling Banshee playbook, as in I screamed like a girl and used my extreme speed to do some evasive maneuvers. I ran away. But it actually was the scariest shit that has ever happened to anyone. Maybe ever. So yes, I more than anyone else in the world can understand the fear that a striking scorpion inflicts in their foe. I am a true empath. But enough of that. The Scorpions are equipped with heavier armor than the other Eldar warriors and are the physically strongest aspect, making them effective shock troops. The Scorpion helms also greatly enhance their sight, giving the warriors X-ray vision, presumably so they could strike the most vital body parts, which is pretty badass. As for what they strike those with, each Scorpion is equipped with a Scorpion Chainsword that augments strength even further, as well as a Shuriken pistol fitted with a Psychic Viewfinder, enhancing their awareness even further. Oh, and also, they have face guns. These little things on their helmet are called Manda Blasters. Along with adding to the Scorpion theming, they shotgun blast shards of metal that are then blasted into a plasma spray by powerful lasers. Badass! Then, the Exarch get even more melee weapons, including giant chain swords called Biting Blades, Scorpion Claws, which are power claws that are appropriately Scorpion themed, or twin chain sabers with twin shuriken pistol gauntlets. Those last ones being twin twinsies. And the chain saber combo is just super cool. Imagine an Exarch relentlessly striking their enemy with two chain sabers, while they're also peppering them with shurikens from their twin gauntlets, and on top of that, they're also tastefully blasting Mr. Soon-to-be Mincemeat with their face guns. Badass! While I think chain sabers are my favorite, I'm gonna be honest and say that the Striking Scorpion Exarch has the coolest loadout options of all the Eldar, maybe ever, and I will take no objections. Also, a lot of people think that chainswords don't make sense for a stealth unit considering it's a damn chainsaw sword, but in my opinion, they make more sense than something like a power sword or, Emperor forbid, a regular blade. Now, I should mention I can't remember where I learned this, so its canonicity is dubious, but I remember reading that the Eldar chainswords are more sophisticated than most Imperial and Orc counterparts, meaning that they run nearly silently. But even if they were loud, I still think that it makes sense considering a power sword has an intense glow and cackle, and having a conventional blade would just slow down their carnage when they finally do pounce. Also, chainswords have an off and on button, so they could just switch it on when they finally do attack. Plus, thematically, a chainsword fits really well since it waits in still silence and then violently roars to life in combat, much like a striking scorpion. But speaking of swords, similar to striking scorpions, the howling banshees also specialize in melee combat. However, they emphasize speed and grace in head-on assaults versus the scorpion's brute strength and ferocity in ambushes. The howling banshees were founded by Jane Czar and represent the dread that Cain incites in the heart of his foes. Another unique aspect of this aspect is that the Banshees are predominantly made up of female Eldar, both due to their Phoenix Lord being female and the Banshees that they're named after being female spirits in legend. But they do have some male warriors. However, all Banshees do wear the same style of armor, so yes, there are femboy Eldar in this aspect. Much like their mythical namesake, the Howling Banshees are known for their Banshee Howl. Their Banshee mask is a sonic weapon that amplifies the Eldar's war cries into sonic psychic attacks. Their screech shivers the foe's timbers and paralyzes them with a psychic overload, leaving them vulnerable for the incoming onslaught. Especially skilled Banshees can even focus their vocal cords to perform the Shriek That Kills, which is a Shriek That Kills. Depending on how good the Banshee is at doing it, it can paralyze opponents, cripple them with piercing reverberations, or just straight up kill someone as I've mentioned. But if you think that screaming isn't deadly enough, any person who's been in an airplane with a baby would disagree, but also, the Banshees are equipped with power swords and shuriken pistols. They unleash flurries of precise attacks upon hapless squads, often before opponents can even react. Then, of course, the Exarch gets a host of unique melee weapons. There's the Executioner Power Glaive for some more hitting power, the Triskele, which is a potent melee weapon that can also be boomerang thrown, like the Risk of Rain Huntress's Laser Glaive, which is not a glaive. And finally, they can dual wield mirror swords to maximize their unrelenting flurries. Alright, let's talk about another one of my favorite aspect warriors, the Warp Spiders. These dudes are super wicked cool. The Warp Spider's Phoenix Lord is not known, but their namesake is from the tiny crystal spiders that live in Craftworld Wraithbone trees. These little spiders can use the Eldar Infinity Circuit to essentially teleport itself around the Craftworld. This is foreshadowing. Immediate foreshadowing, that is. The warp spiders also teleport themselves around. However, these warriors use dimensional harnesses fitted with a small warp generator that allows them to make short warp jumps. This allows them to make rapid, unpredictable strikes as they blink around the battlefield. However, it also puts them in great risk as they're constantly blinking in and out of a hell dimension. But the risk is often worth it as the warp spiders are an extremely deadly foe. The spider's primary armament is their death spinners. These wacky things shoot spools of razor wire that are magnetically wound up and explode into clouds of death when shot. These clouds are in actuality a web of monomolecular filament that absolutely shreds flesh and armor alike. Then their exarchs either wield two gauntlet mounted power blades with dual death spinners on robo arms for maximum evisceration, or a spinneret rifle, which is kind of similar to a death spinner, except it shoots a single rigid wire that is specialized in penetrating armor. So they're basically Spider Man mixed with Nightcrawler shooting a giant war crime gun. But I don't want to get lost on the path of explaining elves, and I also just made a 25-minute video last week, which I don't want to do again anytime soon, so I'm going to have to split this into multiple parts. I feel the first three are the most popular and common aspect warriors, and I just personally think that warp spiders are neat. But yeah, I think Eldar aspect warriors are super cool and honestly a bit underrated. I personally see them consistently being touted as inferior to Space Marines when I feel like they should definitely be seen at least on equal footing. These dudes dedicate potential centuries of their lives honing their skills, not to mention the experiences that they might have from other paths they've taken in the past. Surely that, in conjunction with the natural Eldar athleticism, would make them more than a match for some gene rot brutality. But I guess getting dunked on is just kind of inherent to those elf boys, so it is what it is. Guardsman supremacy anyways. Also, they have a lot of fun and colorful designs, so that's a big plus to me. I don't care that people hate their models solely because they're old. Old model supremacy. I think they look badass. So yeah, tune in next time for some more super cool aspects like fire dragons and dark reapers. Let's see if this or guard influences part 3 comes out first. And thanks for watching, and thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. Check that out if you want to see some time-lapse drawings and the occasional unscripted discussion video. Also, don't forget to use my BattleBards link and code if that sounded cool to you. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing to all your friends on the YouTube viewer path. Thanks. I like how the Eldar helmets also have the little cone-shaped helmets that kind of look like elf hats. It's really cute and fun.